Other honors from the NFL, running back Saquon Barkley is the Offensive Player of the Year. Patrick Surtain from the Broncos, the Defensive Player of the Year. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels is the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Rams pass rusher Jared Verse, he has been named the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And quarterback Joe Burrow from the Cincinnati Bengals, he is the Comeback Player of the Year. Of course, this is the final weekend of NFL football. The Super Bowl coming up on Sunday, matching up the Chiefs and the Eagles. With Progressive, you can bundle auto and home insurance, renter's insurance, or condo insurance, and you're going to save with Progressive. I'm Matt Pauley with the SportsGrid Sports Flash powered by The Score.
My son loves to fly kites, but my active psoriatic arthritis can sometimes hold me back. Now with Skyrizi to treat my skin and joints, I'm ready to go. Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults, helps with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. For those who also have plaque psoriasis, 90% clearer skin is possible with just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi today and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter
because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
A special 2-hour Super Bowl 59 preview. Live right here on a Friday, 48 hours or so out from the start of Super Bowl Sunday in New Orleans. It is Football Full Circle. That is FFC, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. And again, a special 2-hour edition on this Friday of FFC. You can consider it your complete one-stop shop for every Super Bowl need that you have entering Super Bowl weekend as the countdown has reached only 2 days away from the biggest game of every football season in the Big Easy. Scott, on this Friday on Football Full Circle, in our Super Bowl breakdown, we will give you the X's and O's, the key matchup advantages. We will talk player props, the individuals that will dictate the outcome, and of course, who we anticipate winning Super Bowl 59 and hoisting a Lombardi trophy high into the Superdome sky on Sunday night.
Yep. As they say, what's better than 1 hour of Ben and Scott? How about 2 hours of Ben and Scott, right? So, and I'm almost there, but I actually got about maybe another half hour's worth of research in me later on tonight. But I'm almost at that point where it's just play the game. I'm tired of studying, tired of looking at stats, tired of looking at trends. 50,000 trends, Eagle, 50,000 trends, say Kansas City. What's the difference? Pick the team you like. So, but I got about another half hour later on tonight. I'm sure I'll peek at the numbers one more time. But I'm almost at the saturation point of let's just play the football game.
That's what happens in the long, prolonged 2-week build-up to Super Bowl Sunday. And Super Bowl 59, based on the odds makers, expected to be an instant classic. We will talk about the moving markets, where they might be by the time we kick around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday night in the Big Easy. And, of course, some picks, a plenty of previews, and some best bets that we hope can win you some wagers to end out this football season, the 2024 NFL campaign, on a Sunday in February 2025 in New Orleans. But, Scott, as the long build-up to Super Bowl 59 is here, Super Bowl week in New Orleans, filled with plenty of festivities. Before we start our big game breakdown, let's get to some big news from a Thursday in the NFL, in the NFL Honors Show. Last night, in New Orleans, where awards are handed out. Coach of the Year, MVP, Offensive and Defensive Players of the Year, Rookies of the Year, so on and so forth. And of course, Scott, we start with the biggest award every year in the National Football League, the MVP. Some history made last night as Josh Allen wins his first NFL MVP award in his NFL career. That not the only history. Josh Allen becoming the first solo MVP winner since 1987 to win the most valuable player hardware, but not be named to the AP All-Pro first team. That quarterback designation was the reigning MVP winner in Lamar Jackson, who finishes runner-up, Scott, in what was the tightest and most closely contested MVP race we have seen in nearly a decade since 2016. Do you agree with the decision? Josh Allen winning the NFL MVP award.
It's close, right? If you want to, the tiebreaker is expectations coming into the season. A lot of people were unsure, losing Stephon Diggs with Buffalo, and they were kind of regrouping there a little bit. So I think their expectations were a little bit lower than Baltimore's. Both won their division. Both did well. Both had tremendous seasons, right? You can't pick the wrong guy. I think really the thing that pushed it over the top was just, we're in a lack. It's kind of like with Kansas City. We're kind of tired of Baltimore. We're kind of tired of Lamar. Nothing against him or the team, but we're expected, been there, done that. Whereas Buffalo is still the rising team. They've had their setbacks, and I just think they bought into that story just a little bit more, Ben. And, when we were going over the odds, I'll say this as well. This just is further proof. I'll put a flyer on anything. I really will. But when it comes to these MVP odds, when you only have 32 voters like you have in football, it's just so easy for the books to call those people up. It's not hard to do. Just Google it. You can get a list of who's voting. You just call those people up. And even if you get half the people that tell you where they're going, that's enough of a sample size. They know who's winning. So it really is. It's just not worth the flyer. He was the odds-on favorite, probably a lot closer than what they expected, but it's no surprise that he got the job done.
And Scott, that's a great point. The MVP award is not simply based on statistics. It's not simply based on overall record and resume. Part of it is narrative and storyline. Josh Allen, not only the first NFL MVP winner since 1987 to win the award outright by his lonesome and not be named first team All-Pro, he is also the first NFL MVP award winner ever at the quarterback position to lose his top two receivers by yards from the year prior and win the NFL MVP in the ensuing season. So that's some history. And for Lamar Jackson, some history as well, finishing runner-up. 27 of the 50 first-place votes go to Josh Allen, 23 to Lamar Jackson. Part of the narrative, Scott, is voter fatigue, all right? Are we really going to give Lamar Jackson his third MVP honor in the last 6 years and for a second consecutive season? It might seem dumb because you can quantify it from the stats and the odds associated, but it really does come to fruition. Lamar Jackson, the first player in NFL history, Scott, to have more passing yards, passing touchdowns, fewer interceptions, higher completion percentage, more rushing yards, a higher rushing average per carry than the MVP winner that season. So statistically, Lamar Jackson had the better year. I do believe Josh Allen was deserving, making history time and again throughout the NFL season. First quarterback ever to have a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in a single game. First player ever in NFL history to throw 3 touchdowns, have 3 rushing touchdowns in a single game. But Lamar Jackson, strictly from the stats, had a better year than Josh Allen, but Allen ends up the MVP winner.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to go on stats for those that say, well, that's not right, well, then if you want to go by stats, then you give it to Joey Burrow, right? He nearly completed the Triple Crown. He had the most passing yards, the most passing touchdowns, and it was among the absolute lowest in interceptions. So if you just want to go by stats, he would have gotten it. So you have to find that other ancillary thing that just kind of pushes one guy over the top. And I really do believe that was it. Expectations weren't there for Buffalo. They end up winning the division. No Jets, no Dolphins. And we knew the Patriots weren't going to be any good. Whereas we kind of expected Lamar. Listen, Lamar's a great player, right? We've seen this, done that before with Lamar.
Yep.
So now they're kind of both in that category. Like if both guys next year put up similar numbers, I think the voters would now look for somebody else, whether it's Burrow because he got maybe screwed this season, or pick another quarterback. Like, it's not the numbers that get you in; it's the complete package. Part of it, obviously, but it's the complete package. And Josh Allen had the complete package this year, just a little bit more than Lamar.
Scott, we associate team success, the overall win-loss record, with a position above all else in football. That is the quarterback, 5th consecutive AFC East divisional crown for Buffalo. Now, Baltimore won their 2nd straight in a highly competitive AFC North, but last year, Lamar Jackson's stats paled in comparison to his numbers this year, and he won the award because Baltimore had the best record in the NFL. Josh Allen gets the nod this year. It just was interesting from the odds perspective. Allen entered the season at an 8-1 price, second best behind Patrick Mahomes before the year got started. But for most of the year, Josh Allen was the front runner, was the lone favorite to win that NFL MVP award. After we saw the All-Pro teams and Lamar Jackson got that first team distinction, he quickly shifted to the minus money favorite because of the trend that we have shared. No solo MVP winner has failed to make the first team All-Pro and win the MVP award in the same season since 1987. Josh Allen now has made some history. The rest of the awards in the Hall of Fame classes next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid, and we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin.
He just gives that 5.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
More Americans filed unemployment claims last week, but the labor market remains healthy and there are still relatively few layoffs. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. U.S. applications for jobless benefits rose by 11,000 to 219,000 for the week ending February 1st, according to the Labor Department. Analysts were projecting only 213,000 new applications. Weekly applications for jobless benefits are considered representative of layoffs. Scott Turner was confirmed on Wednesday as the housing secretary, a role central to President Donald Trump's domestic agenda at a time when most Americans say the cost of living around necessities are a top concern. The former NFL player, Texas State Representative, and White House senior aide was confirmed in a 55-44 vote. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is tasked with enforcing and coordinating federal housing law. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 113 through 115. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
There's something you should know and always remember.
SportsGrid does not increase luck.
We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck,
go find a horseshoe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
The Super Bowl countdown has reached only 2 days from Super Bowl Sunday in New Orleans between KC and Philadelphia. In part of the buildup to Super Bowl Sunday is Super Bowl week and the festivities in the host city in the Big Easy. The NFL honors last night. We talked the MVP award. Josh Allen making history, becoming the first NFL MVP winner by his lonesome to win the award and not be named to the first team All-Pro around the NFL since John Elway did so way back in 1987. And one of the reasons, Scott, I think that caught people slightly off guard, despite the fact that Allen was the favorite for a majority of this NFL campaign, is because the same voters who vote for the MVP award are those who vote and decide who earns those first team and second team nods as well. It's almost as if they said, all right, well, we'll give Josh Allen the MVP award and Lamar Jackson AP All-Pro first team.
Yeah, it really is. That's why whenever you talk like Hall of Fame, which we'll get into here in a second, when people throw out MVP awards and All-Pro awards, it's just, you know what? I don't care. I really don't, because it's so phony. And to give you an example, Ben, right? There's 50, I said 32. There's actually 50 AP voters that vote on this stuff, right? So Josh Allen, great season, obviously. Lamar Jackson, great season. Saquon Barkley ran for 2,000 yards. You're telling me out of 50 voters, 50, that's a wide spread of personalities and whatever, right? Not one guy thought Saquon Barkley deserved to be the MVP. When if you look at Philadelphia and you say, okay, Philadelphia Eagle fans, what's the number one reason why you think you're in the Super Bowl this year? I think most would say, or at least a 50-50 split, with Jalen Hurts, they would say Saquon Barkley. So I don't understand how not anybody would think he would be worthy of being the MVP. And then even worse than that, all right, so Saquon rushes for 2,005 yards. You got Derrick Henry, who ran for over 1,900 yards. I mean, that's a phenomenal Hall of Fame type season, right? Not only didn't any of the 50 voters think he was worthy of being the MVP, you got 5 places: first place, second, third, fourth, fifth. All right? Not one guy out of 50 had Derrick Henry, who ran for nearly 2,000 yards, was worthy of even a 5th place vote in the MVP awards. So it's just like, if you're a Lamar fan and you're upset that your guy didn't win, don't worry about it. He's won it a couple times. It's so subjective. It's so, I think these guys all get in a room and they say, who we going to vote for? And they kind of decide amongst themselves together. I just don't understand. How can not Derrick Henry get at least one forget first again, not one at least 5th place vote? Are you kidding me? Really? Meanwhile, Baker Mayfield got a couple of votes, for goodness sakes.
Scott, it is a handicap that we do for MVP awards, whether it's in the NFL, it could be the Heisman Trophy in college football, it could be MVP awards in the NBA or MLB, where you are trying to quantify it from performances, from numbers, from stats, from history made in a game, but also stress, hey, the narrative is an important part of the conversation. Is one of the reasons Lamar Jackson came up short last night. There was no doubt. But Scott, it's also because it's hard to tap into the mind of voters. It's not a computer that spits this all out. Because of what you said, it basically was a toss-up between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. 27 first-place votes for Allen, 23 for Jackson. Scott, there was a voter that listed Lamar Jackson 4th. I don't know how you have him outside of the top 2, let alone the top 3. So it is always very interesting. Coach of the Year, that honor goes to Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. 14-win season for the Vikings with Sam Darnold as his quarterback. Also tightly contested. O'Connell gets the edge over Detroit's Dan Campbell. What did you make of the Coach of the Year distinction to give the honor to Kevin O'Connell?
Yeah, listen, it's hard to make a case, or it's hard to make a statement saying, well, he's not good. Like, there were so many coaches. Sean McDermott of Buffalo, again, the same kind of thinking with Josh Allen. You could just go up the ladder and say with the head coach, too, who thought the Bills were going to be this good. So O'Connell, definitely, right? Who thought Sam Darnold was going to be able to carry the torch once McCarthy got hurt in the preseason? So I'm okay with it, but it could, like I said, man, it could have been a number of guys. It could have been Sean McVay, who thought the Rams were going to be where they were. You want to give it to Dan Campbell. I mean, their win total this year, I think, was maybe 10.5. I know it wasn't like 12 or 13, and they finished 15-2. So it seems it's amazing. All these awards, when it comes to Coach of the Year, anyway, especially, it's like, what were the expectations going in? I even said it.
So I think we're having some audio issues there. We'll hope to have Scott Wetzel back in just a moment. But to Scott's point, oftentimes you look at rookie head coaches to try to pass that bar and overwhelm expectations in their first year. Oftentimes playoff success correlated with that. Offensive and defensive player of the year honors. Saquon Barkley wins offensive player of the year in a landslide, as was expected. Defensive player of the year, Denver's cornerback, Patrick Surtain II, who was 100-1 to win the award before the 2024 season got underway. That was the 21st shortest number around the National Football League. Surtain becomes the first defensive back since Stephon Gilmore in 2019 to win Defensive Player of the Year award. Those two defensive backs, the only two since Troy Polamalu last won the award in 2010. Oftentimes, Defensive Player of the Year has become the best pass rusher in the NFL. Pat Surtain II taking home the award on a Thursday night in New Orleans. Offensive Rookie of the Year pretty much had his name inscribed on the trophy by mid-October. Jaden Daniels for Washington. Jared Verse, the Rams edge rusher, the rookie, ending off a great rookie campaign, wins Defensive Rookie of the Year. And Joe Burrow, for the second time in his NFL career, wins Comeback Player of the Year. He entered the year with the second best price. Aaron Rodgers, the preseason favorite. Joey B, coming back from playing only 10 games the year prior and had a great statistical season for Cincinnati. Those are the awards. We'll hope to have Scott Wetzel back on the other side of the break. We'll talk the Hall of Fame class in 2025 up next.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1914, Charlie Chaplin debuts a silent film character, the Tramp, in kid auto races at Venice.
Okay.
The Keystone Studios production was filmed in Los Angeles and was shot during the Junior Vanderbilt Cup, an actual race with Chaplin improvising gags in front of real-life spectators. Chaplin became a worldwide icon through his persona, the Tramp. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute.
I did see where my mic, for whatever reason, shut
Penn
off.
State University researchers are attaching miniature QR codes to the backs of honeybees to track their movements in
when I
and out of
refreshed,
the
I noticed
hive.
it was off.
Sensitive optical sensors attached to the hive log bees coming and going.
Right.
They found most trips last just a few minutes.
With the mic.
And some lazy bees just like to hang around the hive. But hard workers stay away for hours loading up with nectar. The goal, placing beehives in the wild to improve their health and honey production. But I bet the thing you really want to know, how the heck do you stick a QR code on a bee? Follow me at Chicapalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Game time decisions.
Nico Harrison is trying to sell everybody that Dallas is now win now.
They lost Luka to just get extra big depth. It's a preposterous move. The incredible thing is they could win the championship, and I still don't think their fans would forgive them for this decision. I don't believe they are now a legitimate championship contender.
It's Game Time Decisions with Kevin Walsh and crew. Weekdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you.
if you got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Scott Wetzel back with us after fixing that quick audio issue. Scott, I ran through the rest of the awards given out last night after Coach of the Year in New Orleans, Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon Barkley. DPOY, Patrick Surtain II from Denver. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels. That was to be expected. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jared Verse. Comeback Player of the Year, Joe Burrow. Any strong thoughts on any of those award winners last night in the Big Easy?
It's kind of interesting, right? Everyone got a little something. I really believe they just create more and more awards just to avoid the issue you had with Joey B and Lamar Jackson, right? But so Burrow gets his, Josh Allen gets his, Saquon gets his, and poor Lamar ends up getting absolutely nothing, right? So good to see a defensive back, get the Defensive Player of the Year award. You outlined it. I was listening to you. It's so difficult. You didn't really have a monster sack guy this year. Trey Hendrickson, 17.5. That's pretty good, but no one got to 20. No one was close to setting any kind of records. And, we know how they felt about Burrow, so I'm guessing the same thing about Hendrickson. You can't give it to a guy whose team didn't make the playoffs. So other than that, the next highest sack guy was 14. So it did kind of open the door for the voters to look elsewhere and say, all right, we don't have that one guy, whether it's T.J. Watt or Myles Garrett. We could actually look elsewhere. And then they went to a defensive back on a Bronco team that had a terrific season.
Trey Hendrickson finishing runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. Now a very precarious offseason ahead for Hendrickson and Cincinnati as a whole. We have heard from Joe Burrow throughout Super Bowl week, basically campaigning for his guys, putting pressure on the front office execs in Cincy to pay everybody, keep this nucleus, keep the core together. We'll see if Mike Brown and his Bengals staff decides to do so this offseason. Scott, not just the honors of individual awards this season, but the honor of a gold jacket and a bust in Canton, Ohio, given out last night as well for the 2025 Hall of Fame class. The smallest Hall of Fame class with just 4 members we have seen in 2 decades since 2005. Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, and Sterling Sharp. Most notably, Scott, probably not somebody on this list that we can discuss in just a moment, but a guy who was eligible for the first time, who was left out of Canton, Ohio, at least for this year. That would be Giants quarterback and 2-time Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP, Eli Manning. Not a first ballot Hall of Famer, Scott. Do you disagree?
No, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, period, let alone first ballot. That out of all the things that happened, that was the one that I was most pleased with. And I'm a Giants fan, Dolphin, a Giant fan. Listen, he was a good quarterback, but good is not good. He had great moments, right? Even if you look at the MVP awards, the Super Bowl, it's not like he was throwing for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns in those Super Bowls, by the way. It's the defense that won those Super Bowls, stopping Tom Brady. So, but listen, he got the job done. He had the late drive. We all get that, the catch. He won 2 of them, so give him all the credit in the world. But, listen, Jim Plunkett's got 2 Super Bowls. He's not in the MVP. He's not in the Hall of Fame either. So just because you're able to win and get into the postseason, they had Cinderella runs both times, Ben. I mean, he was a good quarterback. There's no shame in being a good quarterback, whether it's a quarterback or anything else. But that doesn't mean you're a Hall of Famer. So I just don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I'm glad they didn't put him in. I was surprised Kuechly didn't get in. And listen, I know he's only a kicker, but if you're Adam Vinatieri, he was one of the best kickers of all time. You want to have the debate, kickers can't be in the Hall of Fame? Okay, I suppose, but as far as being among the best, boy, he was right up there.
Listen, there will be plenty of time for all of those guys that you mentioned, Scott, to get in. Eric Allen, 19th year of eligibility. Sterling Sharp, a seniors candidate, getting his way into the Hall of Fame. Scott, it's been the age-old debate on Eli Manning. The career passing stats, the numbers in this pass-happy era that this generation of QBs has been lucky enough to play in, not overwhelming. Only a Pro Bowler 4 times, never led the league in passing yards or passing touchdowns throughout his lengthy NFL career, but he does have the accolades of the biggest triumph you can have in football, winning a Lombardi Trophy and winning 2 Super Bowl MVP awards. Tom Brady still has night sweats about Eli Manning standing in his way of history. Will it ultimately be enough, given his last name, the figure he is in the National Football League? I do think at a point Eli Manning will don the gold jacket, just not a first ballot Hall of Famer at this moment. Our Super Bowl 59 preview and breakdown in full begins next on Football Full Circle here on SportsGrid Radio.
winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash powered by The Score. Top 25 college basketball yesterday. Ohio State wins at home against number 18 Maryland 73-70. Just two top 25 games tonight. Number 7 Purdue hosting USC. Number 12 St. John's at number 19 UConn. In the NBA tonight, Spurs at the Hornets, Cavaliers at the Wizards, Hawks hosting the Bucks, Nets at home against the Heat, Sixers and Pistons will play in Detroit, Thunder at home against the Raptors, and the Jazz and Suns will play in Phoenix. The NHL schedule for the evening: Penguins on the road against the Rangers, Jets at home against the Islanders, Predators and Blackhawks will play in Chicago, Oilers at home against the Avalanche, and the Kings play host to the Stars. With Progressive, you can bundle auto and home insurance, renter's insurance, or condo insurance, and you're going to save with Progressive. I'm Matt Pauley with the SportsGrid Sports Flash powered by The Score.
What if every Valentine's Day gift you bought earned something back for yourself? Well, it can if you shop Macy's One Day Sale. You can save 40 to 60% on fine jewelry, designer handbags, and more. Plus, you can earn faster during Star Money bonus days this weekend only. Let our gift guide help you find the perfect gift for the loves in your life and earn Star Money for yourself. What's not to love? But don't wait. It's all happening today at Macy's. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply, including gift card services and fees.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Super Bowl 59 is now just 2 days away inside the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. And for the second time in the last 3 years, it's the Kansas City Chiefs facing off against the Philadelphia Eagles. For the next hour and a half, yeah, it's a special Friday here on Football Full Circle. We will preview the entirety of Super Bowl Sunday, the spread, the side, who is going to win the Lombardi Trophy. What might that final score be, and how many points are we going to see? Will it go over or under? And the individual players in the prop market that associated with their numbers are directly going to impact the Super Bowl outcome. Who will deliver on the biggest stage of every single NFL season? Scott, let's start with the narrative, with the history at stake on Sunday. Kansas City, the 9th team ever in NFL history to win back-to-back Lombardi trophies. The fact that KC is even playing on Sunday in a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl, becoming the first team to do that, win 2 straight Super Bowl championships, and appear in a 3rd, that is history in its own right. Kansas City hoping to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls, also becoming the first NFL team in history to accomplish that gigantic feat. History at stake, certainly on Sunday in the Big Easy.
Yeah, and I'm all for bucking trends, but I don't know if I'm ready to buck a never trend in that no team has ever won 3 straight Super Bowls, right? 3 straight championships, back in the 50s, whatever, but not 3 straight Super Bowls, and we've had the Super Bowl a long time. So, since 61 with the Packers. So I'm leaning towards Philadelphia. We could break it all down, but, I think it's going to be a good game. I do think Philadelphia, most people I've talked to, Ben, if they say Kansas City, it's either because of the conspiracy factor or they just say, well, it's Patrick Mahomes and I'm tired of betting against Patrick Mahomes. It's not really like a breakdown of the game. And I think Kansas City's defense is going to be able to do this and stop. It's all like, it's the refs and it's just Patrick Mahomes. The people that say Philadelphia are the ones that are breaking it all down and saying, Philadelphia's got better this, better that, blah, blah. And the game minutia is the Eagles. So depending on how you kind of fall, It seems to be a clear line in the sand. You like Kansas City for the most part, it's because it's just destiny. It's just Patrick Mahomes. He's never going to lose, right? Like, he's never going to lose another football game ever. You like Philadelphia? I think it's those people that are breaking the game down and deciding who's got the better offense and defense and special teams.
And Scott, in the week leading up to Super Bowl 59, even last week here on Football Full Circle, we did much of the same, right? Up and down the checklist: coaching, roster, quarterback, skill position, running back, defense. Who has the edges? Where are the matchup advantages? How will we see that schematically play out in Super Bowl 59? Now, I would say it might seem a simple thought, although justified, that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are still there. Got to back the Chiefs until somebody knocks them off the mountaintop. It's hard to bet on somebody doing so, but there are the numbers associated, right? If this is a close game, as the odds expect, we'll talk about the changing money line in just a matter of moments. That would favor KC. They have won 17 consecutive one-score games. That's an NFL record. They are perfect 12-0 in one-score games this season. Patrick Mahomes already in his illustrious playoff career in his 7 seasons as the starter in Kansas City is perfect, Scott. 8-0 straight up and against the spread as a field goal favorite or fewer, or as the underdog from that spread perspective. The Chiefs are currently still laying just 1.5 points and a couple of cents of difference in their favor on the money line. Some trend is going to have to break on Sunday evening, whether history comes up just shy or Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs continue to prevail in those closely contested games. Scott, a trend is going to come to an end, it would seem, on Sunday night in New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many on each side, right? And it gets to be kind of funny, Ben. You know, when I was working in hockey, we used to do some segments on the Wayne Gretzky and all the records, and we would just be laughing on air about how crazy one great stat after another with Gretzky, right? That's right. How Mahomes is. I mean, you rattled off a couple there, 17-3 in postseason. How about 21-4-1 against the spread, let alone win against the spread in road games or neutral site games? Mahomes extended rest 30-4. Hurts is only 9-8. Mahomes indoor games 14-1. I mean, He's trailed 4 times, or he's trailed in the fourth quarter 9 times in playoff games. He's 7-2 in those playoff games, with the 2 losses coming in overtime. So even when he's down in the fourth quarter, the guy finds ways to win. I mean, it's just one great trend after another with Mahomes, but he is human, right? I mean, this Kansas City team, they are human beings. They could have a bad day, be not focused, have the ball bounce the wrong way. But it's kind of funny when you look at some of these numbers with Mahomes especially.
No doubt about it. And Scott, schematically, you would probably say, hey, what's the blueprint on how to beat Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City? Teams have been searching for the last half decade plus around the NFL. Is it to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hand? Is it to get so far in front they can't play in a single score game? Well, the Chiefs have trailed by double digits in each of their previous 2 Super Bowl victories, including by 10 at the break to these Eagles 2 years ago in Super Bowl 57. Scott, now let's dive in to the actual numbers for this year's biggest game in this year's matchup. The Chiefs on FanDuel remain a 1.5 favorite. In other areas in the market, it's just a single point. And the money line is as close to a pick'em as we have seen in the prolonged layoff leading up to Super Bowl 59. Minus 116 on the money line in favor of Kansas City. Minus 102 on the other side for the Eagles. We'll get to the total in just a bit. It is 48.5. But Scott, now just 14 cents of separation on the money line. Divide Kansas City and Philadelphia. Will the actual game follow what the odds are anticipating, a tightly contested affair on Sunday?
I don't think so, Ben. At least not when everything is said and done. It is funny. You know, you could have gotten Philadelphia. I think I saw it as high as plus 106, depending on where you did your shopping, 108. I don't know if it got to 110 or not, but now it's not only even, now it's actually minus 102. So either way, you're losing a vig. How does Vegas make its money? Well, if you got people betting Kansas City at minus 116 and Philadelphia people betting at minus 102, either way, they're going to win something, right? That's Vegas for you right there. We'll cut to the chase. I think Philadelphia's the better team. And I've used the Mahomes philosophy in the first round. I used it before the midway through the season. I thought they were going to be the number one seed. I thought they would get to the Super Bowl. I said it against Houston, said it against Buffalo. It's Mahomes. Show me someone who's going to beat them. But I'm drawing the line in the sand with this game, Ben. I'm not thinking. I just think Philadelphia's the better team. And I know they got the two huge checkpoints with the head coach and with the quarterback. But the quarterback with Jalen Hurts is not that, listen, as great as Mahomes is, Hurts is pretty darn good, right? It's not that big of a drop-off. It really isn't. And with that, I got the tight end. I got the running backs. I got the much better wide receivers. I just don't know. On paper, I see this as like 34-17, 34-14. I don't think it's going to be close in the fourth quarter. And I think Philadelphia kind of knows that. Not that they would ever take their foot off the pedal, but we all know Kansas City gets every break in the world, right? Whether it's fortune or whether it's the official, who knows? But they get every break in the world going their way. So I think Philadelphia's mindset is we got to be up 2 scores. And even Kansas City's been able to win their last 2 Super Bowls, being up down 2 scores. But I just don't think Philadelphia is going to take their foot off the pedal. And I just think they're the much better football team. I really do.
Scott, I would agree with the idea that if this is a close game, if it follows what the odds expect, that of course favors Kansas City. We just shared. The Chiefs have won 17 consecutive single-score games. That is an NFL record. So it is incumbent on Philadelphia not only to go up by multiple scores, but not allow yet another historic comeback. We will look at some of those odds if you favor Philadelphia, and we'll talk the amount of scoring we expect to see on Sunday. That would be the total up next.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
More Americans filed unemployment claims last week, but the labor market remains healthy and there are still relatively few layoffs. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. U.S. applications for jobless benefits rose by 11,000 to 219,000 for the week ending February 1st, according to the Labor Department. Analysts were projecting only 213,000 new applications. Weekly applications for jobless benefits are considered representative of layoffs. Scott Turner was confirmed on Wednesday as the housing secretary, a role central to President Donald Trump's domestic agenda at a time when most Americans say the cost of living around necessities are a top concern. The former NFL player, Texas State Representative, and White House senior aide was confirmed in a 55-44 vote. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is tasked with enforcing and coordinating federal housing law. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
If you love designer brands and you love clearance, then you're going to love this. Macy's is having a huge designer clearance event right now with incredible new designer markdowns on cold weather styles from BCBG, Hugo Boss, Michael Kors, and more. How big are the markdowns? How about Coach boots for $200 or less? So if you're looking for the things you love all in one place, come in and shop the designer clearance event at Macy's today. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. It's just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. It is our Super Bowl special. 2 hours on FFC, not just until 1 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern here on SportsGrid Radio in Sirius XM Channel 1 59. Scott, as we are breaking down the Super Bowl and who ultimately wins the biggest prize in football, that being a Lombardi trophy, you are leaning Philadelphia, and you think the Eagles could win comfortably. Philly right now a slight underdog, and by the closest money line difference we have seen in the 2 weeks leading into Super Bowl 59. Minus 116, the price for KC, minus 102 on the other side for the Birds. And Scott, you offered up something that I think is rather intriguing, because if Philadelphia is to win this game, the Eagles should try to win it comfortably. That would seem to be very commonsensical, that if you want to win by as much as you can. But given how good KC is in those tight games, in avoiding disaster, and winning closely contested football games, it would behoove the Birds to win big. You could take an alt line on the Eagles for Philadelphia to win by a touchdown or more. Minus 6.5 at plus 230 might be enticing for a game that is so close on that money line.
Yeah, I'd go even higher than that. I would, listen, I think it could be a 17-point game, but I'm confident it'll be at least 14. So I would go as high as minus 13.5 with Philadelphia and really bump it way up. Listen, I wouldn't put a whole unit, whatever your unit happens to be on that, but at plus 560, it's not that 24, 28, when you play the games out, right, in your brain, you're like, okay, that could happen. It's so easy to play the final score versus, wow, who wants to lay 13.5? That's stupid, Scott. But 28-14, you got yourself a winner. 27-13, you got yourself a winner. If you think it's going to be a lower scoring game, I do think Philadelphia is going to eclipse their team total of 24.5. I think they're good for 30 points. So a 33-17, 33-14 type of game. Like I said, I don't think fourth quarter they're going to take their foot off the pedal when they're up. So normal circumstances, maybe they would go conservative up 10. But after they lost the last Super Bowl being up double digits, I could see them, continuing to try and score and get that third touchdown or at least that third score to push it over 13.5.
And the Eagles, of course, because they were up double digits at the break 2 years ago in Glendale, Arizona in Super Bowl 57, outscored in the second half. Kansas City, a great third quarter, an even better early fourth quarter, and the Eagles unable to keep up. But Philly this year, best third quarter and fourth quarter scoring team in either 15-minute span in the NFL all season long. By the way, Eagles minus 13.5 in that alternate spread, plus 560. Might be worth a sprinkle if, like Scott, you think the Eagles can win this game comfortably. Now let's talk about that point total. Stands at 48.5. Earlier in the week, Scott, it dropped from 49 and a hook to 48.5, and it's been pretty steady at that number of 48 and a hook. We are talking about 2 of the 5 defenses all year long, regular and postseason combined around the National Football League, that have allowed fewer than 20 points per game. How many points are we going to see in Super Bowl 59?
I like the over. I do, but especially if it's going to be under 49, that 7 touchdowns is going to get you over. It's kind of like, what have you done for me lately? If you want to buy into trends, boy, under trends on Kansas City for the last 2 years have been just phenomenal. Just absolute. But I'm going to use the old what have you done for me lately in that I remember 32-29 against Buffalo 2 weeks ago. And it's like, I think Philadelphia's going to score. So it sounds crazy to say, but, my concern with an over wouldn't be Philadelphia scoring. It would be Kansas City scoring. I do think they're going to put some points on the board, and I think Philadelphia is good for 30. So I don't really know how this stays under 49 points. I know it's 2 good defenses. I get it, but you know what? It's Mahomes and company. It's the Super Bowl, and you got Philadelphia with all those weapons on offense. Maybe the defense is going to help the over by creating some short fields with turnovers. I like the over 48.5 a lot.
And Scott, we have seen the unders be the trend in Super Bowls as of late for those closing numbers. Under in 5 of the previous 6 Super Bowls, the only over in that span, Philly and KC 2 years ago, Super Bowl 57, closing total around 50 or so in the consensus betting marketplace, 38-35, the victory for KC. In fact, in our last 7 Super Bowls, only 2 have featured 52 points or more. The Eagles were a part of both of that. The upset in Super Bowl 52 over New England, and of course, 2 seasons ago in Glendale, Arizona. Scott, the only time the Chiefs have scored north of 30 this year came in the AFC Championship game against Buffalo. It's really one of the trends we have seen for this Kansas City dynastic run that has continued, and it lines up with Steve Spagnuolo taking over as defensive coordinator. His first year calling the defense in KC, 2019, when they won their first Super Bowl 54 against San Francisco. He has been there for all 3 of their Lombardi trophies and all 4 of their previous trips to a Super Bowl in the last 6 years. And Scott, when you look at it from a Kansas City perspective, you can really thank the defense for the Chiefs being back here. 22.6 points per game on average for Kansas City throughout the regular season. Worst scoring offense we have seen out of the Chiefs in the 7 years Mahomes has been the starter in KC. And the Eagles, frankly, have been the best defense in the National Football League since the opening month of the year.
Yeah. Although, if here's another trend for you. If you just want trends, you would think all that would lead towards Kansas City, right? Well, I will tell you, over the last 13 Super Bowls, Ben, for whatever reason, the team that has more average per yards gain or average yardage per game in the regular season, 2-11. Straight up 1-12 against the spread last 13 Super Bowls. So, I mean, again, it's just all these goofy trends that you can come up with, right? But, yes, it has been Kansas City's defense. Last 2 seasons. Last year, I think last year's Kansas City team was even worse than this year's. At least this year's, it seemed halfway decent. Man, I still can't believe they won a Super Bowl last year. But there's no feeling out process in this game. There's no nerves. Both teams have been here. They faced each other before. I don't think you might get those series or 2 feeling out process drives which would lead to unders. So that's why I like the over as well.
The Chiefs hoping for that 3rd consecutive Super Bowl that started with a victory over the Eagles. The Birds hoping to exact some revenge on Sunday evening in New Orleans. We continue on FFC up next.
Is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channel dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC, our Super Bowl 59 preview. continues on this Friday. Just over 48 hours out from Super Bowl Sunday officially kicking off. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. We're almost at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll continue on our Super Bowl special into a second hour on FFC at the top of the hour. Scott, let's dive even deeper into that total. 48.5 is the number right now. Where do you believe it closes come Super Bowl Sunday around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time in New Orleans?
I think it'll close 49. I think when the public bets it, and public generally bets it, day of the game, right, for the most part. And I think public bets overs. So I think it will get to 49. I don't think it'll go much lower than 48.5. It's kind of fluctuated. I think it was 49.5 at one point, low as 48.5. But I think it'll go a little bit over. I think that'll go over. I think the Philly number will come down as far as the point spreads are concerned. But it's the public that's going to move this stuff, I would think. So because of that, I say over. I think it'll get to 49.
And Scott, when you look at those team totals, as we see, the odds from the money line perspective grow even closer and closer. The Birds team total, 24.5. The under a slight bit more juice at minus 126. Same team total for Kansas City, 24.5. The under a slight bit more juice at minus 116. I do believe this game goes over as well. I actually have Kansas City winning a third consecutive Lombardi Trophy. My final score prediction somewhere in the ballpark of 27-24, but I do think we get to the over because I think both teams, despite how great the defenses have been, have too much star and firepower offensively and approach these team totals around 24 or maybe even over that number of 24 points. Scott, if the game goes over, does that favor one team over the other in a big way in your estimation?
All right, I would say Philadelphia, right? Kansas City, as good as their offense was last week, I still have my doubts about them. If you told me Philadelphia was to put 30 on the board, I would be okay. I understand that. For Kansas City to do that, even in the Super Bowl, despite what we got 2 years ago, I would think, out of 10 games, the winning team scores 30, I would tell you Philadelphia would win 7 out of the 10. I think Kansas City's MO is let's try and run the ball a little bit. Listen, we got Mahomes, we're going to throw it, but we want to win this one 24-21 in that range versus, 34-31, which I think would be more suited for Philadelphia.
I think both teams can win in an under. I actually think both teams can win in an over. I'm not so sure, Scott, if this game is decided by who or if the game flow decides on either side who wins a Lombardi Trophy, because I think both are relatively evenly matched. We have gone up and down the board in terms of those matchup advantages. It's how we'll spend most of our second hour here on FFC. The quarterback comparison, the running back spot, obviously a huge, huge edge for the Eagles and Saquon Barkley. But what do the Chiefs need out of their ground game to have success come Super Bowl Sunday? What about the top targets for Philadelphia? A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. What about Travis Kelce's historic and prolific postseason performances? And what might we see out of the pass catchers for Kansas City? We'll talk about the individuals that will impact the outcome. And Scott, we've tried to give a check mark to teams and position groups that we think have the advantage in Super Bowl 59. I actually think the tightest distinction is probably the defensive coordinator roles. Steve Spagnuolo for Kansas City, hoping for his fourth Super Bowl ring with KC, the fifth in his career. Vic Fangio for Philadelphia, first year with the Birds, but nearly 40 seasons in the NFL in some form or fashion, hoping for that first Super Bowl championship.
And first win over Patrick Mahomes. As a defensive coordinator, either with Denver or Miami, he's faced them 8 times, Ben. He's 0-8, 2-6 against the spread. That's the bad news. The good news is, though, if you're a Philadelphia fan, right, Mahomes only has 10 touchdown passes in those 8 games, which, for Mahomes is really not that much. For anyone else, okay, that's normal. So it's not like he's thrown the football for 3,000 yards, but bottom line is he is 0-8 against Mahomes. He hasn't been able to find a way to get a victory.
Yes, that is very true. Andy Reid was asked about some of his coaching adversaries, and those he has faced off against in his long and prolific career. And Andy Reid mentioned Philly's defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. They have had battles. There will be another on Sunday in the biggest game of every single football season. FFC continues for a second hour next.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash powered by The Score. Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen has been named the NFL MVP. He beats out Lamar Jackson for that award. Other honors from the NFL, running back Saquon Barkley is the Offensive Player of the Year. Patrick Surtain from the Broncos, the Defensive Player of the Year. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels is the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Rams pass rusher Jared Verse, he has been named the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And quarterback Joe Burrow from the Cincinnati Bengals, he is the Comeback Player of the Year. Of course, this is the final weekend of NFL football. The Super Bowl coming up on Sunday, matching up the Chiefs and the Eagles. With Progressive, you can bundle auto and home insurance, renter's insurance, or condo insurance, and you're going to save with Progressive. I'm Matt Pauley with the SportsGrid Sports Flash powered by The Score.
My son loves to fly kites, but my active psoriatic arthritis can sometimes hold me back. Now with Skyrizi to treat my skin and joints, I'm ready to go. Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults, helps with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. For those who also have plaque psoriasis, 90% clearer skin is possible with just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, there's nothing like clearer skin and better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi today and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter.
Because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
A special 2-hour edition of Football Full Circle reaches that second hour as we preview Super Bowl 59, just 2 days out in New Orleans, Super Bowl Sunday. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. We continue our breakdown of the biggest game of each and every NFL season. We have talked the side. We have talked how close the distinction is right now in the numbers. 1.5 spread in favor of Kansas City. Just 14 cents of distinction on the money line, minus 116 for the Chiefs, minus 102 for the Eagles, and a total at 48.5. But Scott, as you really dive even deeper into a Super Bowl 59 matchup, you look at the advantages. You look at the key X's and O's and who has the edges to dictate the outcome of the most important football game of a season. And when you start those spot-by-spot, position-by-position breakdowns, you begin, of course, at the quarterback position. Patrick Mahomes for Kansas City, 250.5, his passing yards prop, 28.5 on the ground. Jalen Hurts for Philadelphia, 211 in a hook, his passing yardage number, 36.5, his rushing yards prop. How do you compare our quarterbacks for Super Bowl Sunday in New Orleans?
Yeah, listen, like I said earlier, but I don't think it's that big of a difference. You're always going to give the nod to Mahomes, right? He's going to have the experience. He's got the pedigree. He's got all the numbers and everything, and he's obviously great. But I'm telling you, you get Jalen Hurts' A game. That's why I said I think Philadelphia's A game ultimately versus Kansas City's A game, and I think Philadelphia wins 7 or 8 out of 10. And that's what I'm counting on with Jalen Hurts. You're always going to give the edge to Mahomes, again, obviously, but I don't think Hurts is that far off, at least not his A game, and that's what I'm hoping we're going to get on Sunday. I think he's going to be able to run the football. I like his over running props. I think it's going to be in his hands. I know everybody's playing Saquon Barkley, but I got a funny feeling Philadelphia is going to take a step back and just say, you know what, Hurts, we're going to give it to you. We're going to try and run the ball. Kansas City's defense hasn't allowed a 100-yard rusher in 18 straight playoff games. Now, I don't think Philadelphia's going to go away from Barkley, but I think Kansas City is going to do what they have to do to stop Barkley, putting 8 men in the box, and then it's going to be up to Hurts to throw the football or scramble around, design runs, and I think he's going to be good enough to do that. I'd be more apt to play Jalen Hurts props than I would Saquon Barkley's.
When you look at the two quarterbacks and what we saw just 2 years ago outside of Phoenix, Patrick Mahomes was great in the game. 21 of 27, $182 only through the air, but efficient with 3 touchdowns, 6 runs for 44 yards in total. But who won that quarterback matchup just head-to-head? You'd probably argue Jalen Hurts, 304 passing yards, a touchdown, 15 carries, 70 yards, and 3 rushing scores. One of 2 players ever in Super Bowl history to have 3 rushing scores in a single game, alongside the Broncos running back Terrell Davis. Ultimately, Patrick Mahomes had the last laugh 2 years ago in terms of hoisting that Lombardi trophy and winning a Super Bowl MVP. But Scott, Jalen Hurts did rise to the occasion in Super Bowl 57. There is little doubt of that. Scott, you believe the Eagles win this game comfortably. Can the Birds do so if Jalen Hurts stays under those 2 main props we have mentioned, 211 and a hook and 36.5 on the ground?
No, I don't think so, especially the passing prop. Maybe the rushing prop just because he just doesn't have to run that ball. But as I mentioned with Kansas City's defense, right? 18 straight playoff games, Ben, without allowing a 100-yard rusher. Lamar Jackson, if you want to count him, but no running back has run for 100 yards against Kansas City this year. Only Jackson in the opening day. So I don't think Philadelphia is going to run the ball. So if you're telling me that's a given, and now you're telling me Hurts isn't throwing for 250 plus yards, then I don't see, outside of this being a really low scoring game, I don't see Philadelphia winning this football game.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, Scott, by the way, as we talk some more quarterback props, neither quarterback favored to throw an interception. Jalen Hurts has only thrown 5 INTs all year, none in the postseason, hasn't thrown a pick in 9 consecutive games. In 4 of those 5 interceptions thrown by Hurts this year, 4 of them happening in the first 3 weeks of this season. Patrick Mahomes was very turnover heavy early in the year, has really cleaned that up. His last game with an interception was against Buffalo in the regular season. But Scott, oftentimes in a Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes has put the ball in harm's way a little bit more frequently. He has thrown a pick in 3 of the 4 Super Bowls he has played in so far in his career. The only game without one, the first matchup against Philadelphia, now 2 seasons ago. 7 touchdowns to 5 INTs for Patrick Mahomes, but still not favored to throw an interception this time around. Scott, we mentioned the passing yards prop, the rushing yards prop. Jalen Hurts, one of 2 players in this game, favored to hit pay dirt at -115 to score a touchdown. But I actually do think one of the most telling numbers, if you will, for how Super Bowl 59 plays out is Mahomes' passing attempts prop, listed at 36.5. He only threw the football 25 times against the Texans, just 26 times against the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game, and KC ran it 35 times on the ground. Mahomes himself had 11 attempts carrying the football in that AFC title game. If Mahomes is going over 36.5, what does that mean of the offensive game plan and trying to attack the NFL's best defense? Does that also mean that Mahomes and the Chiefs are playing from behind because Philadelphia has brought the fight? I think that will be a very telling number, Scott, the pass attempts prop for Patrick Mahomes at 36 and a hook.
Yeah, I mean, and I had the over last game, so this comes from experience. I did look it up, and he's had like 37 attempts in like 3/4 of his playoff games. These first 2, no, but, they weren't 11 design run plays. There were a couple design run plays 2 weeks ago, but most of those were scrambles. So his 26 really should have been closer to 36. I think that's the MO. For them to win the football game. Like if you told me he threw 40 times, it wouldn't necessarily be, oh my God, they're in a whole lot of trouble. It's Patrick Mahomes. This is why we made a living on Tom Brady props. And I'll use the same philosophy. You don't have Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes on your team in a Super Bowl and hand the ball off. You just don't. You're going to do it sometimes, but ultimately, 2 weeks ago, right? They ran it to Mahomes 11 times, and then they had Pacheco on 5 rushes. But other than that, it was Hunt. So they ran the ball to running backs 22 times. That's where I'm figuring it's going to be, right? Between 15 and 22, and then whether it's Mahomes throwing the ball or him scrambling, either way, it's a design pass play. So I'm going to go right back to his over again, even though I got burned last week badly, and it didn't come close. But again, you don't get to the Super Bowl and hand the ball off to Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. Sorry, just don't do that.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Scott. Again, that might be the organization of the offensive scheme for Kansas City. Quick hitters get the ball out of Mahomes' hands. They can often act as establishing the run without actually being a run play. And I think that is the next matchup advantage to detail in this game, because there is no doubt, Scott, I think you could say position by position across both rosters, the biggest advantage on one side is Saquon Barkley for Philadelphia. He has been the difference for this Eagles team as compared to the roster in Super Bowl 57. He has been the difference for the Eagles in comparison to every team they have played throughout this postseason run, and the odds makers expecting more history out of Saquon Barkley come Sunday. 21.5 attempts, 109.5 rushing yards. What do the Eagles need out of big play Barkley in Super Bowl 59?
I don't think that much. I think 75 to 100. I think Kansas City, like I said before, I think Kansas City is going to do everything they can to stop them. From running the football. And then it's going to be up to Hurts to throw the ball, and I think he'll be successful. So I would think you need 60, 75 yards. I want Jalen Hurts to win or lose this football game, Ben, not Saquon Barkley. 2nd and 7, hand the ball off. 1st and 10, hand the ball off. 2nd and 10, hand the ball off. I don't want to see that from Philadelphia.
I don't think Saquon Barkley comes up well shy of those numbers, but it is a lofty burden and expectation. We'll talk more about Saquon and establishing the run for KC next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid, and we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin.
He just gives that vibe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
More Americans filed unemployment claims last week, but the labor market remains healthy and there are still relatively few layoffs. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. U.S. applications for jobless benefits rose by 11,000 to 219,000 for the week ending February 1st, according to the Labor Department. Analysts were projecting only 213,000 new applications. Weekly applications for jobless benefits are considered representative of layoffs. Scott Turner was confirmed on Wednesday as the housing secretary, a role central to President Donald Trump's domestic agenda at a time when most Americans say the cost of living around necessities are a top concern. The former NFL player, Texas State Representative, and White House senior aide was confirmed in a 55-44 vote. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is tasked with enforcing and coordinating federal housing law. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 1/13 through 1/15. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
There's something you should know and always remember.
SportsGrid does not increase luck.
We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck,
go find a horseshoe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Our 2-hour-long Super Bowl Sunday special continues 48 hours out from Super Bowl 59. Scott, we are now going through those player props and the individuals that will impact the outcome of who wins a Lombardi Trophy to end out this 2024 season. Saquon Barkley, his numbers ridiculous. 21.5, his rush attempts prop, 109 in a hook. His rushing yards prop down by a few yards from where it was at open. 13.5 receiving yards, and the best price of anybody in Super Bowl 59 to score a touchdown at minus 190. Those are very lofty expectations, Scott, from the odds perspective to live up to for Saquon Barkley. I'm not saying I would run to the window to bet the under, but maybe he does come up just a little bit shy. I would say this, if you are planning on betting Saquon Barkley because you think the Eagles have a great chance of winning a Super Bowl and you believe Saquon Barkley is a big reason why, I might look at his rushing plus receiving yards prop of 127.5. He hasn't been super consistent as a pass catcher throughout the year, but we know he is great at doing so. And if the Chiefs try to contain the run as much as possible with a great defense as well, maybe the Eagles come up with some new schemes in the long Super Bowl layoff to get Saquon Barkley involved as a receiver to still get him those necessary touches, Scott, on Sunday night.
Yeah, 13-1 is Philadelphia when he runs for 100 yards or more. Not that they've lost a ton of games. Not like they're 0-6 when he does it, right? I mean, you're going to be able to find a lot of those common denominator things. So you can get those odds for him to rush for 100 yards and Philadelphia wins plus 125 or so. I wouldn't necessarily fool around with that because, we got burned last or 2 weeks ago, right? I mean, he runs for 60 yards for a touchdown. He's got 90 yards by halftime. You think you're going to get yourself a lousy, 30 yards or so second half, depending on your number, and he comes up short. Is that goofiness going to happen 2 times in a row? You never know, right? I'm not expecting a 60-yard run out of him. So, and really, if you eliminate a couple of these long runs, he was kind of held in check, believe it or not, a couple of weeks ago. So, I don't think he gets it. I really don't. I think you got to pick your poison. I think Kansas City is going to say, let's have Hurts throw the football. Maybe eventually they peel back a little bit, but I gave you the numbers before about Kansas City's great defense. No running back this year. Only Lamar ran for 100 yards. 18 straight playoff games, which is really amazing. Right? You're talking about 18 teams that are really, really good, and no one has run for 100 yards. So I don't think it's going to happen again. I don't know if I'd play the under, but I won't play the over. I'll tell you that.
23.5, the longest rush for Saquon Barkley, who has had a record-setting and historic season. 7 rushing scores this year for Barkley of at least 60 yards. The first player in NFL history to do that. He needs just 30 rushing yards to set the all-time single-season record, including playoff rushing yardage, past Terrell Davis, who did so in 1998. Only 30 yards. I think Saquon Barkley gets that on Sunday in New Orleans. And Scott, just quickly on Jalen Hurts, because of course that is a huge part of the rushing scheme for Philly as well. One of the big questions for the Eagles health-wise is how close to 100% is Jalen Hurts with the injured left knee? And what about the interior of his offensive line? Center Cam Jurgens, left guard Landon Dickerson. We expect all 3 of those guys just mentioned to play and certainly be suited up on Sunday. How close to 100% effective can they be? Still one of the big questions, I would say, entering this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to assume 2 weeks off. If these guys played all banged up and whatever 2 weeks ago, that they're going to be able to play now, whatever it takes for them to get on the field. But I will say it's one thing to be able to play, but it's another thing to be effective. But, if they weren't effective 2 weeks ago, putting 55 points on the board against Washington, then, I think Kansas City's in a whole lot of trouble if they're going to be 2 weeks healthy. Same thing with the week before. So they've been able to get the job done. I'm expecting them to play, and if they're in there, they'll be effective. I'll say this also about Barkley, as we rattle off all these numbers, right? After a while, it gets to be like, you get the brain punch crazy. 100 yards rushing in 5 straight games heading into the Super Bowl. He's the first player to ever do that, which I found very surprising. I thought for sure there would be other players heading into the Super Bowl with 5 straight, but no. And teams, Ben, that put 8 men in the box, and I don't know how legitimate these numbers are, but you read them, so you spit them out. He averages 3.93 yards a carry, which isn't bad. With only 6 or 7 men in the box, he averages over 6 yards a carry. So that's why I think Kansas City's going to have to say, well, we can't put 6 or 7 men, at least not to start the game. Let's put 8 men in the box.
And we'll see the health of the complement to Saquon Barkley. Kenneth Gainwell, injured in the NFC Championship game in concussion protocol, but with the additional layoff, should be good to go. He has been practicing this week for Philadelphia. Will Shipley, the rookie out of Clemson, scored that 7th rushing touchdown for Philadelphia in the NFC title game against the Commanders. Jalen Hurts wasn't overly his mobile self, 10 carries for only 16 yards, and still scored 3 touchdowns in that NFC Championship victory. Scott, I think a big question for this game, if KC is to have success, what do they need out of their ground game? Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco. Hunt has been that lead back, leading rusher, leading attempts throughout the postseason. Highest rushing yards prop for KC, 43.5. Pacheco just 21 and a hook. Scott, if KC is going to stay around in this football game in Super Bowl 59, what do the Chiefs need on the ground against one of the best defenses up front in the NFL in Philadelphia?
Yeah, and listen, they're going to have to be productive, right? Whatever number you think productive is, it's going to be where you can't, if you're Philadelphia, put 8 men in the box, just like we talked about what Kansas City wants to do with Barkley, right? If you're Kansas City, you can't allow them to put 8 men in the, or actually the other way around. You can't allow them to drop, 4, 5, 6 guys and be able to control the line of scrimmage with only 5 or 6. If that's going to happen, then Kansas City's in a whole lot of trouble because they won't be able to throw the football with their wide receivers against 6 defensive backs all the time. So they're going to have to be, again, productive to the point where Philadelphia's going to have to respect their running game. Whether it's 50 yards, 60 yards, 70, 75, Hunt's more than likely is going to be the guy, though.
100 plus for the Chiefs as a team. Minus 210 at this moment on FanDuel. 125 plus is plus 120. So a big gap in just about 25 yards there. Plenty more on FFC up next.
There's smart
and there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here
and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1914, Charlie Chaplin debuts a silent film character, the Tramp, in kid auto races at Venice. The Keystone Studios production was filmed in Los Angeles and was shot during the Junior Vanderbilt Cup, an actual race with Chaplin improvising gags in front of real-life spectators. Chaplin became a worldwide icon through his persona, the Tramp. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Penn State University researchers are attaching miniature QR codes to the backs of honeybees to track their movements in and out of the hive. Sensitive optical sensors attached to the hive log bees coming and going. They found most trips last just a few minutes, and some lazy bees just like to hang around the hive. But hard workers stay away for hours loading up with nectar. The goal, placing beehives in the wild to improve their health and honey production. But I bet the thing you really want to know, how the heck do you stick a QR code on a bee? Follow me at Capalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Moneyline.
The Lakers and LeBron tried to will that into existence with AD being the lead guy. He never truly was, and I think everybody knows it. Luka is better right now than LeBron James, which means LeBron's the second best player on a team. That's incredibly dangerous.
Catch Moneyline with Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh. Weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere, even while the wife's talking to you.
If you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
One of the biggest matchups in my estimation for Super Bowl 59. How much success on the ground is Kansas City going to have against one of the most fearsome defenses all year long in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles? 43.5, the rushing yards prop for Kareem Hunt. 28.5, the number for the quarterback. That would be Patrick Mahomes. 21 and a hook, the rushing yards prop for Isaiah Pacheco. And Scott, we can compare these teams to what we saw in Super Bowl 57 in some of the matchups that were won in Super Bowl 57 2 years ago. That game's leading rusher, Isaiah Pacheco, 15 carries, 76 yards, and a touchdown. It seemed as though KC had found a diamond in the rough. 7th-round pick, ending off a great rookie season at Rutgers. That was Pacheco, but suffered a significant ankle injury earlier this season. Probably not fully at 100%, even though he is playing once again throughout this postseason run. I really do believe, though, Scott, a huge X factor in this game is what KC can get out of Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, either on the ground or as receivers. You throw in Samaje Perine to that list as well. Pacheco, 2 grabs on 2 targets for 12 yards against Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. His receiving yards prop for Super Bowl 59, just 4.5.
Yeah. It's why Saquon Barkley's only, and I do mean that only, minus 470, Ben, to be the highest rushing player in the Super Bowl. Who wants to lay minus 470, right? But it's right on that number of like, well, how can it be him? Well, you never know. Hunt actually might go off, even though Barkley's number is over twice as high for the game over under as Hunt's is. But they're giving Hunt like a puncher's chance to maybe go for 75, 80 yards, and maybe Barkley does it, or maybe Barkley gets hurt. Who knows? But I would have thought when I saw that icon and I hit it, I'm thinking, well, he's going to be like -7, -8 to 1, some ridiculous number. But, minus 470, maybe, you put a couple of shekels on Barkley if you have the guts to do that. But ultimately, though, I do think, like we were talking about before the break, I don't think Mahomes, with this team, now, any other team maybe, but with this team, I don't think he's going to be able to throw for 350-plus yards, 400 yards, if he's not getting any running game. If he's getting a running game, maybe he could do that. But if Hunt or Pacheco, and I think it would be Hunt, as you alluded to there, if they can't put 55, 60 on the board, you think about it, the team over-under is about 100, right? But if you take Mahomes is near 30 out of that, the team really over-under without the scrambles is around 70 yards. They're going to need to hit that, I think, to be competitive in this game.
I think it's a really good point. Kareem Hunt, actually the most consistent scorer for Kansas City. Travis Kelce has the shortest number at +125 to hit pay dirt. Hunt's number as low as +135 earlier in the week, now +150, but he has scored in each of the 2 playoff wins for KC dating back to the regular season. 4 consecutive games that Hunt has played in, he has found the end zone. Scott, let's now go to Travis Kelce.
Let me throw one more.
Please, go ahead.
I'll throw one more just for Hunt purposes. He's also the second player in NFL history to rush for a touchdown in each of his first 6 playoff games. So even though that may be a little while ago, it does show you that Kansas City likes to use, this is all with Kansas City, obviously, they do like to use him in the red zone and inside the 10-yard line. So he'd be a good touchdown prop guy. Sorry, go ahead.
Funny enough, the reunion, of course, this year for Kareem Hunt back in Kansas City, where he started his NFL career, but he left KC at the end of the 2018 season, Mahomes' first as the starting quarterback, when they came up short against Tom Brady and the Patriots in that AFC Championship game. So this will be Kareem Hunt's first Super Bowl appearance with Kansas City. All things to pay attention to. And of course, Scott, as much a part of this dynastic run as Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Steve Spagnuolo, it is Travis Kelce, one of the most prolific playoff performers in the NFL we have ever seen. In fact, the direct quarterback to receiver connection between Mahomes and Kelce, the most productive we have seen in postseason history. Brady's had Edelman and Welker and Gronkowski. Jerry Rice has had both Joe Montana and Steve Young throwing to him. So specific quarterback to receiver, that would be Mahomes and Kelsey. Travis Kelsey's prop for Super Bowl 59, 60.5 receiving yards, 6.5 receptions, plus 125 to score. Shortest number, most likely Chief to score a touchdown in Super Bowl 59. We'll talk about the history and the production that Kelsey has seen in his playoff career, specifically in Super Bowls, up next on FFC.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the Sports Grid Radio Network.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Grid Sports Flash, powered by The Score. Top 25 college basketball yesterday. Ohio State wins at home against number 18 Maryland 73-70. Just two top 25 games tonight. Number 7 Purdue hosting USC. Number 12 St. John's at number 19 UConn. In the NBA tonight, Spurs at the Hornets, Cavaliers at the Wizards, Hawks hosting the Bucks, Nets at home against the Heat, Sixers and Pistons will play in Detroit, Thunder at home against the Raptors, and the Jazz and Suns will play in Phoenix. The NHL schedule for the evening: Penguins on the road against the Rangers, Jets at home against the Islanders, Predators and Blackhawks will play in Chicago, Oilers at home against the Avalanche, and the Kings play host to the Stars. With Progressive, you can bundle auto and home insurance, renter's insurance, or condo insurance, and you're going to save with Progressive. I'm Matt Pauley with the Sports Grid Sports Flash, powered by The Score.
What if every Valentine's Day gift you bought earned something back for yourself? Well, it can if you shop Macy's One Day Sale. You can save 40 to 60% on fine jewelry, designer handbags, and more. Plus, you can earn faster during Star Money bonus days this weekend only. Let our gift guide help you find the perfect gift for the loves in your life and earn Star Money for yourself. What's not to love? But don't wait. It's all happening today at Macy's. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply, including gift card services and fees.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
You're listening to Sports Grid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the Sports Grid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
We are live, and our Super Bowl special continues here on Football Full Circle. 2 hours today on FFC, still with about 30 more minutes to go to give you those best bets, winning wagers, and our Super Bowl 59 predictions 2 days out from Super Bowl Sunday in New Orleans. Scott, right before the break, we dove into the Travis Kelsey numbers. 6.5 receptions, 60.5 receiving yards, plus 125 to score. Best and most likely price for Kansas City to hit a touchdown. Travis Kelsey is the most prolific, productive performer in a postseason at the receiver spot for Kansas City entering this matchup. What do you make of that number of 60.5? Is it too high, or does it feel fitting for the biggest stage of an NFL season?
Yeah, it's fitting, right? I mean, say what you want about him in the regular season. Last year, same thing. He turned it on in the postseason. This year, a similar thing. Although against Buffalo, they did shut him down, only 2 receptions, but on only 4 targets, which is the most amazing thing when you really start to think about it. But I'm guessing Kansas City can't win this game, Ben, unless he has a decent number. 24 playoff games, you mentioned it, second in touchdown receptions to Jerry Rice, second in receiving yards. He's got the most receptions, as you mentioned, ever. I can't help but think that he's going to have to play a role in this game. If I'm Philadelphia, I'm doing everything I can to shut him down. Like Xavier Worthy's really kind of picked up, and I'm sure we'll talk about him more and more of the slack here a little bit, but ultimately that's his go-to guy. That's the guy he wants to rely on. 6.5. it's 7 doesn't seem like that big of a number. I think he gets to the 7. I'd like the yardage more than I do the receptions, to tell you the truth. I could see him maybe getting, 4, 5, 6 receptions and go over that total versus him getting 7 receptions and still going under that total. So give me the yardage. If I was going to play one, I would go with the yardage over the reception number.
Scott, entering the divisional round, first game, of course, for Kansas City. 51.5 was the receiving yards prop for Travis Kelce. Knowing how prolific he has been in his postseason career, it was my best bet for that weekend over the number. Finished with 7 grabs for 117 yards and a touchdown against Houston. Sailed over it. That number skied by 16 yards to 67.5 for the AFC Championship game against Buffalo. You are now paying for the peak of that number. 2 grabs, 4 targets, only 19 yards against the Bills. This number feels fitting. This number feels as though it has found its mean and its fair middle ground. And when you look at Travis Kelce, over 60.5 is something Kelce has done in 14 of 15 playoff games for KC, dating back to the start of the 2020 season. The last 5 playoff runs for Kansas City. 3 previous Super Bowls for Kelce in the loss to Tampa. 10 grabs, 133 yards. First time against Philly. 6 grabs, 81 yards, a touchdown. Last year against the 49ers, 9 grabs and 93 yards. This is a number he has consistently gone over. If you think the Chiefs are going to have offensive success, Travis Kelce, to me, is still a big part of that recipe. And, of course, you harken back to what Zach Ertz put up against Philly in the NFC Championship game. 11 receptions, 16 targets, 104 yards. The Birds lost Nakobe Dean early in this playoff run. 3rd year out of Georgia, outstanding linebacker, certainly in coverage, kind of the anchor, the play caller for Vic Fangio and that Philly defense. I do think there is a slight advantage there for Travis Kelce. Scott, now we transition to the other side for the Philadelphia Eagles. Top targets. Highest number for Philadelphia, that would be 69.5 for A.J. Brown. That is the largest receiving yards prop in Super Bowl 59. But keep an eye, of course, on Devontae Smith and the Birds tight end in Dallas Goedert. You expect Jalen Hurts to go through his numbers. I think he does as well. How do you think he distributes the football on Sunday?
Yeah, I think, listen, I'm a big believer history tends to repeat itself, especially when you've had success against that team. I'm going to go Devontae Smith more than I am going to do Goddard or A.J. Brown. 3 games bet against Kansas City. In 2023, they played 8 targets, 6 receptions, 99 yards receiving. Super Bowl, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 100 yards receiving. They played back in 2021, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 122 yards. I mean, he's tied with Mike Williams for the most 99 yards or more receiving yards against Kansas City since 2018. He's been the one, not A.J. Brown. He's been the one that's been a benefactor, and I think the MO is going to be the same here. Little pop quiz. He's the 5th player. He could be the 5th player in Heisman Trophy National Championship Super Bowl history to win all 4 if you want to count the Super Bowl, or all 3, including the Super Bowl. Tony Dorsett, Marcus Allen, Charles Woodson, and Reggie Bush. He would join that group. But anyway, that said, give me Devontae Smith. I think he's been the one, once, okay, twice, 3. When you do it 3 times like he has against Kansas City, for whatever reason, they're not guarding him. He's been the guy that they've been going to, and I don't see why that would change. So I would go Devontae Smith numbers.
Yeah, listen, Scott, when you look at just the yardage props themselves, let alone what the production has been, it's been a little bit strange, really, when you look at the stars, at least. A.J. Brown's number down by a yard from where it was earlier in the week. Dallas Goedert down by a yard from earlier in the week. Xavier Worthy down by a yard from where it was earlier in the week. Travis Kelce has been steady at 60 and a hook. Devontae Smith is the only guy that has seen his yardage prop increase. 48.5 at open, 50 and a hook just a few days ago. Now 52.5 on the Friday, 2 days out from Super Bowl Sunday. As you mentioned, the Eagles' leading receiver in Super Bowl 57, 7 grabs, 100 yards. A.J. Brown has, in the last 2 games that I'm going to mention, the same exact stat line. 6 receptions, 8 targets, 96 yards, touchdown. in the NFC Championship game this year against the Commanders, in Super Bowl 57 2 years ago against Philadelphia, or against Kansas City, I should say. In each of those two games, Jalen Hurts only threw a single touchdown, both into the welcoming arms of A.J. Brown. His price to hit pay dirt plus 180. Dallas Goedert has been Philadelphia's leading receiver from a yardage perspective, Scott, throughout this playoff run. His prop 49.5, and Kansas City at times this year has struggled defending those tight ends on the other side.
Yeah, that's the big number everyone's pointing to, right? KC's defense has allowed the most yards per target to tight ends. You can kind of divide this piece of the pie so many different ways. It's not the most yards, it's the most yards per target. What does that mean, right? Who the heck knows? Right. Basically, tight ends have had some success against Kansas City's defense. I will tell you what Goddard, the numbers are impressive. If you want to play his, led Philadelphia in receptions in the title game with 7. His over in reception props has hit in 9 straight playoff games, Ben. 9. That's, clearly Philadelphia likes to go to him, right? Goddard would be the one, whether it's yards or reception numbers. His numbers are low enough at 49.5 yards, where, again, I tend to go more yards than I do the actual receptions for these players, just because I think it's harder to have that many receptions without getting those yards. Whereas I think you can clearly make a case he could have 49.5 yards on just a couple of receptions if things fall the right way. I don't think he can get to 49 or 50 yards without having, the other way around. So I think the yardage is the way to go with him as well.
There does feel like some more avenues to get over a yardage prop as opposed to that reception prop, unless you are just a highly targeted receiver for one quarterback. Scott, all 3 of those guys that we have mentioned for Philly, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, in fact, have the same number for their receptions prop, 4.5. Brown, Goedert, juice on the over. Devontae Smith, slight juice on the under, and yet has that second highest receiving yards prop for Philadelphia. We'll talk about what KC will have in its wide receiver room, who needs to make an impact outside of Travis Kelce. And then we give you those best bets for Super Bowl Sunday. All of that on the other side of the break here on Football Full Circle.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
More Americans filed unemployment claims last week, but the labor market remains healthy and there are still relatively few layoffs. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. U.S. applications for jobless benefits rose by 11,000 to 219,000 for the week ending February 1st, according to the Labor Department. Analysts were projecting only 213,000 new applications. Weekly applications for jobless benefits are considered representative of layoffs. Scott Turner was confirmed on Wednesday as the housing secretary, a role central to President Donald Trump's domestic agenda at a time when most Americans say the cost of living around necessities are a top concern. The former NFL player, Texas State Representative, and White House senior aide was confirmed in a 55-44 vote. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is tasked with enforcing and coordinating federal housing law. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
If you love designer brands and you love clearance, then you're going to love this. Macy's is having a huge designer clearance event right now with incredible new designer markdowns on cold weather styles from BCBG, Hugo Boss, Michael Kors, and more. How big are the markdowns? How about Coach boots for $200 or less? So if you're looking for the things you love all in one place, come in and shop the designer clearance event at Macy's today. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. Just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
More often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, we continue our Super Bowl 59 special and preview for Super Bowl Sunday. Scott, we highlighted Travis Kelce by his lonesome. Let's talk about the rest of the receivers for Patrick Mahomes right now. Xavier Worthy with that second highest number for Kansas City at 54.5. Hollywood Brown is back and healthy. His prop for Sunday against the Eagles, 40.5. How about Juju Smith-Schuster, who was a big factor 2 years ago for the Chiefs back in KC, 15 and a hook. And DeAndre Hopkins, a big acquisition for the Chiefs throughout this season, who hasn't done all that much so far in the postseason, 11.5. That receiving yards prop for Nuke. Outside of Travis Kelce, who is it most critical on, Scott, to step up on Sunday for the Chiefs to win a third consecutive Super Bowl?
It's without a shadow of a doubt, Ben. It's Xavier Worthy. I like his props. You know, if you like Kansas City, to me, you got to be playing Xavier Worthy's props. He leads Kansas City in receiving yards, leads them in routes run, whatever that is. Leads them in I know what a route is, but, you know, how do you determine that, right?
Yeah.
Leads them in receptions. Some of these websites come up with the goofiest things, but okay, I'll pass it along. Why not? Leads in yards after catch, leads in yards after contact, leads in design plays towards him. He had 16 design targets since week 12. The rest of the Kansas City players combined have had 10. So he is clearly the guy. I know, you know, Kelsey's going to get some numbers. He's going to get some attention. But if Worthy doesn't step up, and honestly, you know, now that I think about it more and more, Ben, and I hate to put this on a rookie player, right? But if Barkley doesn't have a great game, I could see I could see Philadelphia winning. If Hurts doesn't have great numbers, I could see Barkley going off and them winning. If Kelsey doesn't have a good game, I could see Kansas City winning. To me, the one guy that has to have the good game outside of obviously Mahomes is Worthy. If he doesn't have at least 4, 5, 6, really, if he doesn't have at least 6 or 7 receptions for close to, if not over 100 yards, I don't think Kansas City's got a chance. So I would be playing Xavier Worthy's props.
Scott, when you look at Kansas City this postseason, 2 guys have had more than 5 catches. That would be Xavier Worthy with 11 and Travis Kelce with 9. Nobody else has more than 3. Only 3 guys have more than 5 targets when you add in Hollywood Brown, who has 7, but then a big jump up to Xavier Worthy, who has 13 targets, and Travis Kelce at 12. It's one to show that it's really still Travis Kelce and everybody else for Kansas City. It's another one to say that Xavier Worthy is getting as much production, or at least emphasis in that Chiefs offensive plan, as Travis Kelce, and thus is as critical to their success, Scott, as you highlighted there. Juju Smith-Schuster had 2 grabs for 60 yards in the AFC Championship game against the Bills. His prop 15.5. DeAndre Hopkins, only 1 catch so far in the postseason in total in 2 games for 11 yards. Noah Gray, also a receiving yards prop of 11.5. There is some thought that he can still be that second fiddle as he was most of the year for Travis Kelce. Haven't seen it so far in the postseason. 3 grabs, 3 targets, a total of 13 yards, Scott.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins as that outside guy, Ben. You know, I know he only has 1 reception, but look at the numbers, and his number's only 1.5, and you're getting odds on the over, there, which is key to me. Look at the receptions he's had since he was acquired by Kansas City, right? 2, 8, 4, 3, 5, 4, 4, 5, 4, 2. That's all in the regular season. What do they all have in common? They're all higher than 1.5. You know, so I'm thinking that I know it didn't happen against Buffalo and Houston, but I'm thinking, all right, you know what? We brought him here for a reason. 2 receptions obviously is not a lot. I'm pretty confident he's going to get at least the 1. Does he get that second one? Yeah, I think he does, because and you look at the targets in the regular season, it's basically double. So I won't rattle them all up, but it's basically double of his receptions. So they do throw to him a little bit, and I think Philadelphia is going to score, which is going to force Kansas City to throw the ball a little bit more. I like his over 1.5 at plus odds on FanDuel.
And Scott, the last 2 Super Bowl victories for Kansas City, we have seen some second-rung guys make critical plays. In the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl win against Philadelphia, Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore caught touchdowns that turned out to be the difference against the Eagles. McCole Hardman scored the game-winning walk-off touchdown in OT last year against the San Francisco 49ers. So somebody very likely could step up that we don't expect. Even DeAndre Hopkins' longest reception is 8.5. His prop overall is 11 and a hook. You could get that in one catch on Sunday night against Philadelphia. So really, Scott, when you look at it, that's where things stand from a player perspective. We could add in the kickers as well. Kicking points prop for Harrison Butker, 7.5 for Jake Elliott for Philadelphia, 6.5. Butker perfect throughout this postseason. 4 of 4 in his field goals, kicked the game-winning 27-yarder against Philadelphia with 6 seconds left in regulation 2 seasons ago. But the longest for Butker this postseason, Scott, just 36 yards. Jake Elliott has been pretty good kicking the football in terms of field goals. Did miss a 55-yarder against Washington in the NFC Championship game, but he has missed 3 extra points so far in the 3 games for Philadelphia in this playoff run. Kicker is always critical, Scott, to the overall outcome, whether it be spread, side, or total come Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, that's why I'd be inclined to play some of those 4th down props that you can find about higher, or over, depending how they list it. Because he's had his issues, Ben, from distance. You mentioned it, the extra points, which really isn't that far. He's 1 of 8 this year from 50 yards out. Rest of the NFL is 71%. He's 1 of 8. Which is amazing. And he's missed 8 field goals, 4th most of the NFL. And when the Philadelphia Eagles were leading by only 3 points on average. So they were close games, which he's missing these field goals. So I think they would shy away from him if they had the opportunity.
1 of 8 from 50-plus. Harrison Butker this year. 2 of 5 from 50-plus. And, of course, has dealt with a stint on injured reserve. Now it's time for our official Super Bowl 59 predictions and best bets. That's next on Football Full Circle.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Morency on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Our Super Bowl 59 predictions to end out this 2-hour Super Bowl special live right here on FFC. It is Football Full Circle across Sirius XM Channel 159 in SportsGrid Radio. All right, Scott Wetzel, let's dive into the brass tacks. Our Super Bowl predictions. Who wins a Lombardi Trophy and what is the final tally? How do you see Super Bowl 59 playing out on Sunday night in New Orleans?
All right, I'm going to buck the Kirk Cousins curse trend, Ben, and that is that no team in the last 8 Super Bowls has lost to Cousins in the regular season and went on to win the Super Bowl. Philadelphia did lose to Kirk Cousins. How about that one for you? Philadelphia did lose to Kirk Cousins 22-21 in week number 2 of the NFL season. Probably the high watermark for Kirk Cousins, by the way, in the Atlanta Falcons. But that said, give me Philadelphia. I think they win convincingly. I think it'll be a close game, but then they'll score the late touchdown, and they'll make a 1 or 2 score game seem like it was a blowout, but I don't think it'll ultimately really will be. But 34-17 is the number I'm going to circle. Philadelphia wins by 17. Game goes over. I do think we're going to get some points in this game. Love the Philadelphia over 24.5 points. They've hit that 12 times already this season, 25 points or more. I think they do it again in the Super Bowl.
Scott, I believe the Kansas City Chiefs will make history on Sunday night with a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl championship and edge out the Eagles once again, also by 3. 27-24 is my Super Bowl 59 prediction. Kansas City on top for a 3rd consecutive year, making NFL history. The first ever team to win 3 consecutive Lombardi trophies. And I think it will be yet another single-score game. And if that is the case, I'll back the pedigree of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. To me, the key matchup in the game is Mahomes utilizing his legs and what success Kansas City has on the ground. If the team can flirt with 100 yards, I think that favors Mahomes in the offense to be able to balance and attack this Eagles defense and still have guys like Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy involved and in the mix. So I'll go Kansas City 27-24, my official Super Bowl 59 prediction. Scott, both you and I expecting a grand total of 51 points over our current total of 48.5. Again, the Chiefs minus 116 on the money line as of this current moment, minus 102 on the other side for the Eagles, only 14 cents of separation. Scott, if you had to find a favorite bet, a best bet, whether it be that Eagles team total, a prop, or something fun that you can only wager on for a Super Bowl, what are you looking at for Super Bowl Sunday?
All right, let me give you some that I would not play, Ben. All right, don't play safety. We haven't had a safety in 10 straight Super Bowls. It's not happening, folks. Don't play will the last team score lose. The last team that scored has won the last 15 Super Bowls. How about a punt return? Oh, that's fun. 15-1, 16 whatever it is, right? Don't, folks. 23 straight Super Bowls without a punt return for a touchdown. Don't waste your time. One that I will play because I'm a dope and I don't listen to what I say. Will each team have a touchdown and a field goal in each half at 23-1? I love that play. I play it in all the games. We've had 23 straight Super Bowls where that has not happened. So why bother, right? All right, so let's go to the ones that I like, Ben. I told you about Kareem Hunt touchdowns, love Barkley touchdowns, and I love Xavier Worthy. FanDuel's offering you, if they combine for 4 touchdowns, at 7.5-1. I like that one a lot. Goofy one, but it happens way more times than what the odds are giving you. last play of the game will be a quarterback kneel down. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Philadelphia has the football last. Minus 160. You'd be surprised how many games that is actually the case, and I think this will be the one as well. And then Saquon Barkley to rush for 50 yards in each half, 2-1. I mean, if you think he's going to get over 100 yards, if you're a Philadelphia guy, that's not too bad. Those are some of the ones that the semi-goofy ones that I like.
I like that one as well. Scott, for me, from a player prop perspective, Travis Kelce over 60.5 receiving yards. Jalen Hurts over 211.5 passing yards. Patrick Mahomes over 28.5 rushing yards. He has had at least 29 rushing yards in all 4 Super Bowls he has played in. From the funky ones you can only really wager on for a Super Bowl, under 1.5 yards for the shortest touchdown in the game. A little juicy at minus 192. Over 26.5 yards for our shortest made field goal. Some of the fun that you could have on Super Bowl Sunday. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. Enjoy Super Bowl Sunday and have a great weekend. We'll see you next week on SportsGrid Radio.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge.